Good morning. Welcome to my Sunday show. As always, this is for Cancer Active, and our aim is to provide people with cancer tips and information how they might improve their personal odds of survival. Today's guest with me is Lowell Kile, and he's going to answer your questions, which I've got written down here, on how he beat his cancer. So going to you, good morning, Lowell. How are you, and how's the Dorking Hills today?
Good morning, Chris. Yeah, everything's fine. It's actually sunny here for a change.
So you're an American living in this other country that speaks roughly the same language. So at what point did you move across?
I work for a large computer company, and they sent me over here to work at the stock exchange to fight IBM.
All right.
And so one thing led to another, and I'm still here.
Okay, lovely part of the world you live in. Lovely part.
That's what's kept me here. I love the countryside.
And you were saying earlier on, you live next door to Mr. Clapton.
Well, down the lane from that noted guitarist, although he has yet to invite us over for tea. I'm a little disappointed.
Does he do tea? He does, doesn't he? Because he went teetotal years ago, didn't he?
I think he went everything total a few years ago. Well, I have seen him drive around in his vintage silver Ferrari.
That's right. When he bought the house, he found the Ferrari in his shed, apparently. How lucky is that? It came with the house. I had a Ferrari. I was talking to the girl who sold it to me. All right, so let's get on. So perhaps you'd like to tell everybody what cancer you had.
Yes, and during 2014, about throughout the year, I started getting tireder and tireder and tireder. And then on the day before my birthday, on the 9th of September, 2014, I was handed the diagnosis of stage 3 colon cancer. And that was the start of the adventure. And I had the following month, I had an upper right hemicolectomy, where they removed about a foot of my intestine. And that was followed up with 6 months of chemo, once every 3 weeks. I took oxaliplatin, and amongst other things, it succeeded in damaging a whole lot of my nervous system. The platinum in the oxaliplatin attacked the myelin, the fatty substance that comprises the nerve sheaths. And that was serious and has remained a serious problem for me in terms of neuropathy. But it's kind of a shotgun to kill a mouse in your kitchen approach. But then in February, following that,
other stuff. That's the most of it. You built a complementary and integrated program around the outside, really, didn't you?
Oh, I had my PP with you in February, actually February the 25th, 2015, and I read your book, which is a Bible, everything you need to know to help you beat cancer. I had the PP with you. I've got 6 pages of notes, which I had another look at this morning. And I employed basically everything that you suggested research showed might be of help. And it completely changed my life. I was one of those people that loved to read nutrition articles in the newspaper, but I didn't actually do it. I worked in the city. I had an extremely high stress job. I remember the first question you asked me was, what do you think caused your cancer? And I've never told you this, but inside I thought, what does this guy think he's asking? How the heck do I know? Then after reading your book, I realized high stress, relentless for years, lots of entertaining, 1 or 2 Chardonnays, more than I should have had. My diet was really bad. The only healthy thing I had all day was an apple that I ate driving into the train station in Dorking. And so following up on what you suggested could be of help to me, it turned into I won't say a full-time job, it turned into a big job. I cut masses of things out. I cut out all processed food, which I didn't eat much of anyway, but I cut it all out. That's number 2. Number 1, I cut out sugar, of course.
Yeah.
Because we learned that cancer loves glucose, sucrose, fructose, lactose. It loves sugar. And I still marvel at the fact that no oncologist that I've ever met or heard of tells you to cut out the sugar. I think it's unconscionable. And then supplements, which you recommended, that might be of help. To be honest, I take a heck of a lot of supplements. You name them, and I probably take them if they're targeted for cancer.
I think we've got some questions on this later on, actually. So Well, I think we'll go for the specific ones, shall we?
Yep.
Get to this question. Here's the first question. I think this is a really important one because I get asked this. This is from Peter Phillips. He said, "My colon cancer has gone into my lymph. Now yours had too." He said, "and doctors say I'm stage 3. Does this reduce my chances of beating it, do you think?"
Well, it doesn't enhance your chances, that's for sure. But I would employ all the suggestions that you could find in the book. You know, change your diet, cut out things that could enhance the growth of cancer, ingest things that stop cancer or slow it down or
I think the point
it in some way.
Isn't the point is that if you're stage 3 and as you were 60 something, there is this kind of tendency for doctors to go back a yard. Well, you know, palliative care and so on. And so, I mean, I would say to Peter Phillips, you can beat any cancer, and the fact that it's in your lymph, and if you have surgery, they take the lymph nodes out, you've got a very good chance of beating it. Would you not agree? I mean, I just think that I had one man, Derek, on the show, and he's 82, and he said, "I'm absolutely convinced that because I was 82, they weren't very interested in me." Do you find that? Do you think?
Yes, I agree. They removed, I know, 8-10 lymph nodes for me, and there might be 1 or 2 hot nodes that were left. And I totally agree with you with what you said.
I've got a question from Mary O'Connell. She said, when you had surgery, did they give you a bag? I have one, and my oncologist told me to eat blatantly rubbish foods, white bread, white rice, and so on. Is this true? So did you?
No, thankfully I didn't have a bag, but I was given the exact same advice: go home, eat white rice, white spaghetti, and all the food that's just absolutely wretched for anybody who has cancer. Except at that point, right after the surgery, I think you have to. But they make it sound as if you have to eat food like that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I agree. What's very interesting is they want to, you know, heal you. That's what they basically get talking about, whether you got a bag or not. But what's really interesting in America now, there's a half a dozen hospitals that base their diet is based on the rainbow diet. I mean, they want you to nourish yourself. So,
well, I think they're ahead of the game.
yeah, what interested me was in America, people with a bag do not get this eat white rice, eat rubbish, and so on advice. And I immediately thought, well, somehow your bag or your tube to your bag must be bigger in America, but it's not. It's not. And in fact, all I ever suggest to people is that when they start out, I don't know whether you did this, you know, you just blend a few things first. You can still ultimately eat the nuts and the high fiber and everything else, but blend it all first and ease yourself into it. Or did you go straight back?
I eased back into eating regular food. And not long after our conversation, one of the major things I do in my entire life now is I drink from 1 to 2 liters of raw blended vegetable juice every day. And that's the thing that takes a lot of time. You have to wash it thoroughly, chop it up, blend it, and then drink it. And after 6 years, I've gotten a little bit tired of knocking back so much vegetable juice, but I still do it.
Yeah.
It's just so important.
Well, it is because it's glutathione. I mean, we recommend it. We recommend people do green vegetable juice and don't really put fruit in it, because I always remember someone doing a YouTube and they were throwing berries into their blender. And I thought, that's crazy, because you know, berries in a blender, 100 mils is something like 10.3 grams of sugar, and a Coca-Cola is 10.6 grams. And that kind of brings it home to you. Hey ho. Robert Anthony.
I eat almost no fruit.
Sorry?
No fruit.
No. I use carrot and beetroot, not too much carrot either, and beetroot and lots of ginger to take the edge off it. Right. Robert Anthony said, did you have polyps? He said, I had several, and I'm told I may get others coming back. What can I do? Did you have polyps? Did they
No,
tell you?
no. The colonoscopy showed a tumor.
So you didn't have any other polyps anywhere else, and they didn't tell
No
you
one
where?
ever mentioned that to me. No,
Has anybody in your family ever had colorectal cancer before?
no, no.
Oh, so that it wouldn't necessarily have been a hereditary polyp or anything like that. I will tell Robert Anthony that if you have polyps, there is very good research from Leeds, for example. They used a triple fish oil, and the fish oils are very anti-inflammatory, so it reduces polyps in the gut. And they showed even people with hereditary disease from polyps actually didn't get polyps back and didn't get a cancer recurrence, colorectal cancer recurrence. Next one, Brian Robbins. What do you think caused your colorectal cancer? All right, you've roughly done it, but my oncologist said they don't know. Probably something in my diet could have caused a mutation. I think Chris talked about infection and the microbiome. What was very interesting, to mug up for this show, I was looking online and I looked at that question, and that's what it says online. I can't remember which hospital it is in America, but it's like the second or third entry in Google, and it says it's probably something in your diet that causes a mutation in your DNA in your colon. So perhaps you give it a little bit of thought and tell us what 3 or 4 things you think actually caused your cancer.
I think what was a diet and an enormous amount of stress and a relentless release of cortisol into my body, causing inflammation, which of course goes hand in hand with the development of cancer. It's like a stress, diet, cortisol. The one thing I did do, though, always was work out. I always worked out, but that didn't seem to counter it. What didn't? But I think stress and cortisol is a major problem.
Well, we've shown through research that basically, and this is one of the reasons why we're getting younger colorectal cancer all the time, is that people have got a very damaged microbiome. And stress will put your microbiome down, just as antibiotics will, and a poor diet, obviously. There's some really interesting research that's just come out of Holland, and it's confirmed what we've believed for ages, which is if you eat these foods, you make more of these bacteria and they make anti-inflammatory molecules. But if you eat more of these foods, they make more of these guys and they make inflammatory molecules. And
I remember 6 years ago, almost the first thing you said to me was you have to improve your microbiome. And I started out taking Parafree, and then as per your recommendation, conjugated linoleic acid, caprylic acid, cinnamon, oregano. I still do. In fact, I just finished my yearly Parafree intake.
Well, the next question, Jerry Matthews says, I've had IBS and on a number of occasions over the years, and does this give me a higher risk of getting bowel cancer? So
I don't know.
You've never had a problem with your gut prior? Do you have no inkling this was coming?
No.
That's there is, basically, if people take antibiotics or people get very stressed quite often.
I've had antibiotics multiple times over the years. Oh, yes, many times.
You took antibiotics a lot, did you?
I did. Well, the usual sort of once a year, I've got a big, I've got a bad case of this, and you demand antibiotics, and they gave them to me.
What was it, tonsillitis or something?
Yeah, stuff like, like a bad cough following a cold.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one of the things I would offer, not wanting to scare people, that if you've got IBS or if you're watching this and you've got or had colitis or anything like that, for goodness sake, fix your microbiome. And as this chap Hippocrates said, all illness starts in the gut. But then the American Human Microbiome Project said, your gut gets ill first, then you get ill, and you can't get better till your gut gets better. So personally, I think, healing any chronic illness is about fixing your gut. So I think the lady with IBS should realize that she has got a higher risk and she should do something about it. Don't go on having a bad gut.
I take a probiotic every day and I eat kimchi.
Eat kimchi.
Always.
Do you make it yourself or you buy it?
I buy it, but it's unpasteurized.
Good boy. This is Martin Jolla. Did you do Chris's parasite kill and gut rebuild? Do you think it worthwhile?
It's absolutely worthwhile for the reasons you just stated. You need to make a healthy microbiome, and that's the place to start.
I'm going to digress for a second. I always say to people, they've got to understand about the microbiome. So this is just 1 minute's digression. There are people, I've watched the TV in America, doctors on the television, I won't name them, who say, you know, got colitis, you need a probiotic. Okay, not enough. Basically, there are 4 issues in the gut. Number 1, you have to kill the bad guys. So wormwood, parafree, oregano oil, the things you mentioned would do that. Number 2, you have to heal the gut wall. And we now use butyrate. But then what you need to do with that is you need to give someone back lots of good guys, probiotics, kimchi, and so on. We also need a lining on the gut, because this sandwich is where 85% of your immune system comes from. And this sandwich, also having a good wall and a good lining, stops things getting across. And when pesticides or food molecules or toxins get across into the bloodstream, they cause inflammation in the rest of the body. So that's basically how it works. You're trying to bring the inflammation down in the gut and then bring it down in the rest of the body. So you did good. You did right. Next one, where am I? Anne in New South Wales, she said, I've read that sugar is really bad for people with colon cancer. Is this true?
Holy cow. Uppercase letters, yes. Don't touch sugar, stay away from it, cut it out. Don't do it. The only sugar that I have is that found naturally occurring in vegetables.
Did you, before you got this, did you have a sweet tooth? Did you consume, apart from your Chardonnay, did you consume lots of sugar or not?
No, only in coffee. If anybody's out there is thinking, oh, I can't do these things, my first thought was cut out sugar. I said, there's no way on earth that I'll cut it out of coffee. But ultimately, I found out that that was nothing. You just cut it out. It's a no-brainer.
There is, I should tell everybody, there is research starting about 2002, 2003 from Johns Hopkins in America, and some bright spark noticed that people who had diabetes who were on metformin, not everybody with diabetes is, but the people who are on metformin survived much longer, 3 times longer. And metformin, of course, is the diabetes drug that cuts your blood sugar. And they did a number of studies in Johns Hopkins. And by 2009, they produced a paper which said something like sugar withdrawal after surgery improves survival times, which sounds a bit wishy-washy, but that's about the best you'll get. So sugar, I probably did it to you, but if someone's got a brain tumor or someone's got colorectal cancer, I wag my finger and I say 1 molecule of sugar is your enemy. I wouldn't necessarily say that so strictly about prostate cancer or breast cancer or anything like that. But one molecule of sugar, you did it right. 1 molecule of sugar is your enemy. This is from John McDonald. Did you have chemo after your surgery? I'm finding that Folfox really is hard to take. Any suggestions? So, all right, you had chemo.
I had chemo. I had oxaliplatin and capecitabine. And I started taking supplements that were suggested in your book. And I remember this is a quick aside, but I remember they wheeled in someone to answer my questions about nutrition and supplements. They brought in this lovely, jolly, smiley lady. And this was the very beginning. All I was taking then was like C, D, and E, the usual suspects. And when she heard that, she threw up her hands and looked as if I said I wanted to shoot heroin. And I asked her what she did for a living in the hospital. She said she was a pharmacist. But I used all my supplements, excuse me, throughout chemotherapy. And I don't know whether there's causation here, but I did really well in chemotherapy, and I didn't get nauseous. I exercised. I didn't feel great. I was tired. I was tired
Yeah.
most of the day.
Yeah, we have a little program for people on chemo. We use hyperbaric oxygen, for example, because you need to have high oxygen, because we know that cancer tumors, if you've got any, actually protect themselves with what's called a hypoxic pocket. And if you overload it with oxygen, you damage the hypoxic pocket, and then you can get oxygen inside the tumor. If you hit it with chemo, you can get more oxygen than chemo inside the pocket. So it's kind of win-win. We use fasting, and we use turmeric, berberine, hinokiol, melatonin, things like that. And we always use things that attack the cancer cell, make the drug's job easier, but also give us other benefits. I like supplements that do 4 things or 5 things. I hate supplements that do 1 thing. It's like a waste of time. And so there are definitely ways of doing it. But to answer this specific question about Folfox is really hard going. I would start by doing hyperbaric oxygen with it. I'm looking to see where the man was. John, I think it was. And I was looked to do a hyperbaric oxygen with it. And I would also do what you're talking about earlier on. I would take oregano oil, because tiredness can hit you when you're having chemo, especially Folfox. And it's usually a lack of oxygen in the blood. It's usually having things like yeast in the blood. And if you do get fatigue, you can take acetyl L-carnitine. And of course, the other issue is neuropathy. Did you get neuropathy from your oxaliplatin and so on?
I did indeed, very much so.
Oxaliplatin, the platinum-based ones can be pretty bad. Is it too late, do you think, to try acetyl L-carnitine, or have you tried it and it didn't work, or what?
It's not too late, and I tried it for a while, but then I thought, stay focused on the colon cancer, and yes, I will return to that. And there are two or three other supplements that seem to pop up on Google for neuropathy.
Well, you can take alpha lipoic acid whilst you're having your chemo, and that apparently keeps everything connected, and it makes you less likely to get neuropathy. The problem, I think, is the drugs. So when you get onto the platinum-based drugs, the rules are slightly different. So, for example, just been talking to someone with colorectal cancer, and I knew there was some research on fish oils, that fish oils can clash with oxaliplatin, and these people actually helped me. They went and found all the research, and we concluded in the end, perhaps you shouldn't take it for about 2 days before the oxaliplatin and about 3 days, 4 days afterwards. So just knock off while you're having the oxaliplatin, because it interferes with it. Right. Where are we? Have we done you can eat a bit of everything? Yes, no. Brian Chapman said, to what extent did you modify your diet? My doctor and nurse have told me to eat a bit of everything.
They do, don't they? I pretty much, I was a vegan for about 18 months. And then—
You were a vegan during your treatment, were you?
No, after the treatment.
After the treatment.
And then I went back to vegetarian, and now I'll have a little organic chicken once every 7 to 10 days. And the fish I eat are wild-caught salmon from Alaska, because the fish from the Atlantic, I'm afraid, will have mercury in them. So I only eat the Alaskan salmon and hope that the fallout from Fukushima hasn't gotten over there. But I changed that. I eat almost no meat. I admit I was influenced by a book called the China Study.
Yeah.
By T. Colin Campbell. I wanted to be a vegetarian for decades, for basically animal welfare reasons. But I got about halfway through that, and bang, I stopped eating beef. Excuse me, pork. So it's just a little bit of chicken and fish, and lots of beans.
I was always interested in the China study because I read it very early on. And there is a little problem with the China study, which is, they're absolutely right. If you take these Chinese from their farms and transport them to New York, in the end, they get much more ill than they would have been if they stayed behind. But the problem is there are other factors that they didn't allow for, like, having kids in private schools, or paying your mortgage, or the stress of living in New York. So I don't think it's just about the diet, but I think there are significant differences, that diet can make. And I'm interested that you decided to go vegan. What made you go vegan? I've talked to Chris Woollams. Chris Woollams kind of, if you like, is the famous cheeky chappie who, when he was about 24, had colorectal cancer, and he had the surgery, but nothing else. And then just built himself a program of diet and vitamins and exercise. But you did much the same, really. You had a worse cancer than he had. But what made you go vegan? Did you read something, or did you just feel like it was going to be a good idea?
It was, to be honest, it was largely the China study.
All right. Okay.
That put me over the edge there.
Well, people use the phrase that they want to, Chris does, that he believes you should have a plant-based diet. And that isn't necessarily a vegan diet. The rainbow diet's been voted for the last 3 years the best plant-based diet in the world by 41 different doctors, professors, oncologists, dietitians, nutritionists, and so on in America for US Today. And of course, the Mediterranean diet does use, goat's milk and the odd bit of goat and fish and chicken and so on. So it's not vegan. And I did a lot of research a few years back and went to who are the people in Florida who go on about, you should go vegan and so on. And I even went to them and said, could you send me the evidence? And they didn't have any. They didn't have hard evidence that you will survive a day longer if you go vegan once you've got cancer. I think you should be careful of what you eat. And I agree with you. People should basically, if it's flown around, swum around, walked around, run around freely, you can eat it. And I don't think I would be terribly red, I think, in my meat eating. I've got one from Vicky Robertson. She says, I have been to an integrative doctor who has put me on many, many supplements. In fact, she said so many supplements. Which ones did you take? Now, you've sort of described them overall, but did you do some when you had your surgery and then you changed to some with your chemo and then you do some others, or were you pretty consistent throughout?
I was pretty consistent. I started off with your suggestions. I've maintained them to this day, and all the basics. Gosh, krill oil, D3, quercetin. I take, the honest truth is I take about 150 different or supplements a day. Many of them are repeats.
I'm in shock because I tend to recommend about 8 or 10 at the outset. We must have built it up over the years. You were going for safety in numbers, were you? I said you were going for safety in numbers, were you?
Well, if I found something that seemed that there was supportive research that seemed believable, I added it. So you can ask me about any supplement, and I'll remember if I take it, but to remember them all. I take apricot kernels. The basis are the ones I first heard from you. I think D3, krill oil, apricot kernels, curcumin, quercetin, all the usual suspects.
Yeah. Do you think you've become a professional cancer patient?
Oh boy. Maybe, yeah.
It was a bit of a joke because I actually say to people who come to have PPs with me, please don't become a professional cancer patient. Usually I say it to people who I would say are about 38 with breast cancer, female with breast cancer. And they want to know everything. And there's always something else they could try. And I say to them, look, 5% of your life should be the cancer. Write your plan, stick it on the fridge door and get on with your life. The other 95% should be your life and enjoying yourself. But I suspect you still do that. I suspect you've got your program that you know all about. And I think you're the sort of person who gets on with their life and enjoys themselves the rest of the time. But some people let cancer take over this bit. between their ears, and then I think they're in trouble. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't do that. I do things that counter that. I've always meditated. I do light yoga sessions. I exercise. I would recommend a rebounder to cancer patients. It's a great way to exercise and to increase lymph flow within the body. I still use kettlebells, not the way I used to, but the way a 74-year-old does.
All right. Well, the next question was, Chris talks about the importance of exercise. What did you do? So let's go through it. What did you actually do? So are you a walker up the hills, or to start with, what's your basic exercise, and then you do the rebounding? What's the basic exercise?
During chemo, it was a stationary bike. I used that as close to every day as I could for the oxygen aspect, of course. And out here in the hills in Surrey, I walk in the woods. I use a rebounder. I use a balance board, and I also use
What's a balance board? What's a balance board?
A plastic thing that's kind of shaped like that. And you put your feet here and here.
Yep.
And you balance back and forth, and it exercises your core, and helps with your balance, and it's very good for your legs as well, and it's good exercise.
So what sort of level of exercise were you doing a day then during your chemo, for example? Half an hour or something like that?
20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's good, because that would have got oxygen into you, so you don't need to go for hyperbaric oxygen. There's research from Arizona where they had people riding bicycles for 2 or 3 hours in the morning and then off for their chemo or radio in the afternoon, and they got the same results as hyperbaric oxygen. It made the chemo work better, and it reduced the side effects. So it's the same sort of principle, really. So what about a rebounder then? You got it in your lounge and you jump up and down on it, do you?
A rebounder.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the Chris work YouTubes from years ago, he's bouncing like 6 feet in the air. I'm 74 now, so I do something called a health bounce. Like my feet just leave. In fact, I may not even leave the mat.
Bounce.
Yeah. It's just I just do enough to get mildly out of breath, and I do deep breathing while I'm doing it.
Do you have you seen this chap Wim Hof on the television?
Yes.
And do you follow Wim Hof's breathing? I keep getting people, I don't even know who Wim Hof is. I had to go online because so many people kept telling me about Wim Hof and breathing. Do you do it? What he recommends? Is he talking good sense to you?
Until he got to the really, really cold showers. No, I'm not a Wim Hofer. I read a book. I read his book. But no, the cold showers are beyond me now.
All right. This is Ravi Banerjee. He said, I was very interested to listen to Joy Parsons in your last show talk about Tai Chi. Another thing, Joy had triple negative breast cancer, picked up everything that I did about 17 years ago. Triple negative is hard to beat. And she had stage 3 and so on. And she did lots of supplements and diet and everything, but she took up Tai Chi. He said he heard her talk about Tai Chi. She's gone on to teach it, and it's the kind of love of her life. And she's 17 years down the line, it's all gone. She said, he said, did you have any treatments to improve your breathing and mindfulness or anything like that?
Yes, I practice mindfulness through the day as much as I can. I keep working at it. I meditate every day, as I said. I have since living in northeastern Thailand 50 years ago. There's a little Buddhist temple through the woods, and the monks there, the young monks, wanted to practice their English, and I wanted to learn about meditation, and that's where I started. So yes, I do meditate. It's an important part of my life. A few years ago, I read a wonderful book called Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, and also another one by Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Vietnamese monk. And so, yeah, I do that. And for deep breathing, whenever I exercise or walk in the woods, I purposely breathe deeply to get in more oxygen.
Did you
I tried, by the way.
Meditation then before you were doing your work in the city that caused so much stress?
What was that?
Did you take up meditation then before you did your work in the city that gave you all that stress? I mean, did you not try to keep the meditation going to ease your stress when you were in that stressful job?
No, I started out in Thailand. I did it for years. During when I got to working in the Wall Street neighborhood and in the city here, I'd stop meditating. I didn't get home till 8 or 9 o'clock. I just completely stopped it. Big mistake.
What benefits do you personally get out of meditation?
It lowers cortisol. It lowers blood pressure. It might have some helpful effect on the hormones that make your happy hormones, and it calms you down, and it helps you set you up to attempt to practice mindfulness during the day, which is actually I think very hard.
Yeah, people who this is the physical side of it, and people who do exercise, yoga and things like that increase their endorphins, happy hormones that puts their cortisol down. And people who meditate and pray actually make natural opioids, and opioids and endorphins work together to calm you right down. And they're a really good double act. And there's UCLA have got a stress management laboratory, and it's specialized in cancer for 18 years. And they recommend yoga and meditation. So that's what it's all about. So one thing that we haven't covered is how you get tested, right? So what do you have now? You have scans, and if so, how often?
It's a funny question. The oncologists and the surgeons who operate on you, I think their big target is 5-year survival. And I think, and if I sound a bit cynical here, I am, is that once you hit the 5 years, I went to see the surgeon that did such a good job on me. He went to your old alma mater, and he was another, don't take this wrong, he was another boy wonder. He achieved a great success in it.
I don't think anybody calls me a boy wonder anymore. I think, boy, I'm the same age as you.
But he, as soon as I hit 5 years out, my scan stopped.
So can I just ask a key question then? Literally, since you had the chemo and came out the other side, I mean, all these supplements, it's gone. You've been in ED ever since then?
Yes.
So ever since what, 2016?
Ever since, yeah, 2015.
Okay, since 2015. So you're 6 years on from it.
Yes.
6 years on from it. Okay, good. And what about not scans, but what about the tube down the, what's it called? Colonoscopy.
Colonoscopy.
Do you have those every now and again or not?
No.
Did you have those at the outset?
Yes, I can't remember, it's hard to believe, but I had 2 or 3.
And what were they like? I always remember talking to Contreras in the Oasis of Hope in Mexico. And Contreras was a doctor in Chicago, and his dad was a doctor in Mexico. And he said, one day I went home and I was talking to my dad about, modern medical methods and how wonderful they were and everything else. The next day, just to kind of put me in my place, he said, my dad made me had a coloscopy and stuck the tube down his gut, said, is that really what you want to do in modern medicine? With a colonoscopy. So what did you make of it? Was it bad news, hard? Because I'm getting people to ask me.
That's a good question. I will never forget the moment. I was laying there on my side, as you do when they're administering that not so lovely procedure. There was a big West Indian lady who was the nurse, and she was a really nice person and a lovely smile. And I was chatting with her during this thing, and she was smiling at me. We were talking back and forth, while the old thing was inserted, and then suddenly her smile just disappeared, and her face turned to stone. And I just thought, oh, I just thought, oh no, I knew that was it. They'd seen something. And that was it. Then a few weeks later, my wife and I went to see the surgeon. He told us it was stage 3, and we sat out in the parking lot, and I just said, well, look, I'm going to beat it. And we went off to the pub. And I've been able to I've been very fortunate not being a depressive type of person. Now, you know, in your book that people of faith tend to do better.
Yeah. The people I've been interviewing who have had PPs with me, even back to Jeffrey Boycott, I always say my job's to be thorough when I do the PP, and your job's to be determined. And Joyce, for example, your wife, it's her job to be positive and things and keep you up. For me, it is the determined people who beat it. And it's quite clear to me that you are determined. You've done it. You've not left a door open, as I call it. You've made sure you shut all the doors. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I maintain vigilance. I'm not going to go back.
So in your opinion, this is now completely gone?
Yeah, yes.
All right.
That's my feel.
I think we've sort of come to the end of the official questions. I think on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you. But first, I'd like you to work a little bit harder. I'd like you, as I ask everybody, to give me 3 tips for someone who's got colorectal cancer. I mean, I get people every week, 2 or 3 around the world, who come to me, and usually it's stage 3. It's never really starting out. It's always stage 3. They've had some drugs, they've had surgery. What tips would you have for them?
Vegetables, exercise, and some very targeted supplements. And I would throw meditation in there as well with the exercise.
So it's a total approach.
Yes.
Okay.
That's not very insightful. But
you'd like to ask me?
There's something I'd like to say. Is that I hope that our viewers don't view this as me sucking up to you, but you had to pay a horrible price to be where you are right now, helping people like us. I just want to thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And also the Cancer Active, I cannot tell you what that means to me here in England. I'm not sure about around the world, but to be able to go there to get my supplements that have been vetted by people that know what they're doing, and I do not when it comes to supplements. And it's just an incredible blessing to be able to go to Cancer Active and be able to get good vetted supplements. It means a lot to me.
Well, I'm going to say it's. I mean, obviously the Catherine thing was a bit of a shock at the time, and I was at a situation where I probably could have gone and done anything, but this is where I went and finally used my Oxford University biochemistry degree. Funnily enough, my 2 special papers, just to make it really difficult at the moment, were in cancer and virology. So have you had a vaccine yet?
Nope.
And so we'll leave it there. Otherwise, we'll probably get the show shut down. All right. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And on behalf of everybody, I'd like to say thank you.
Scotty Cup.
Yes, Scotty Cup. My next show, for anybody who's watching, is actually George Cooper. And we're going to be talking about traditional Chinese medicine. And there's a sort of irony here. He was at Oxford exactly the same years as I was. We didn't know each other at all. We bumped into each other on the web doing something for the patient. And he actually is coming on because we do use traditional Chinese medicine a lot. We recommend Tai Chi and acupuncture and things like this. And we recommend certain Chinese herbs like Hinokio and things. So he was really happy to come on a show where people value traditional Chinese medicine. So I want to get a lot of questions in from people because I want to push him a little bit and find out more about it. So anyway, thank you, Lowell. It's been very, very kind of you to do
Pleasure.
this for us. Thank you very, very much indeed. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.